You may not know it from this podcast, but if you've been in the CGS community a while, then you know I've been in the personal finance game for a long time. That means I have plenty of experience with what does and doesn't work when it comes to money. One thing I will say is that there are certain money management principles that always hold true for me. In today's episode, I'm walking you through the 7 money management rules that made the biggest difference in my financial situation. I instill these rules in each and every one of my clients, and I make it my mission to share what it really takes to get ahead financially. Welcome to the City Girl Savings Podcast. I'm Rhea Reeves, founder and finance coach of City Girl Savings. I turned my life around with budgeting many years ago, and now I'm on a mission to help others do the same. I fully believe that you can enjoy your life on a budget, and this weekly show will focus on the intersection of money and the city girl lifestyle. Join me every week along with some special guests as I share my experiences, advice, and guidance on navigating life and money as an experience-loving millennial. Kicking off our list with money management rule number 1, track your spending. I have been following the notion of tracking spending since I got my first job at 16. Yes, that's right. And I'm dating myself, but at that time, I had a checkbook registered that I managed. Every time I spent money or deposited money into my bank account, I would track it in my checkbook register. Unfortunately, I lost this habit when I left for college. Probably because no money was coming in, but that's okay. I didn't pick this habit up again until I graduated and got my first job out of school. At that time, I no longer used a checkbook register, but I tracked my spending, or what I thought I should be spending, in the Notepad app on the computer. I would do this during the night shift at work, and I would look at it every night. When I moved back home to Austin in 2013, I lost the habit again. I was making good money compared to my expenses, but I wasn't tracking anything. I was diligently working to pay off debt, save, and fund what would eventually become City Girl Savings. And I did good during those 3 years of not tracking, but I could have done a lot better. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. I picked back up with tracking in 2016, and I haven't stopped since. I created a tracker in Excel that allowed me to see what my budgeted numbers were for every category in my budget, what I spent on a daily basis, and if I would be under or over budget in any category. I've been tracking this way for over 6 years now, and it's amazing to see how my income and spending has changed over that time. This system has been so effective for me that I even require my clients to follow it during our 3 months together in my one-on-one coaching program. Tracking your spending allows you to see what your money is actually doing. This information is so important to know so you can adjust or keep doing what you're doing to reach your goals. Money management rule number 2, pay yourself first. You've probably heard this one before. I know it's spread all across social media, but for good reason. This notion of paying yourself first basically means that the second you get paid, you put something into savings. Fortunately, I was following this rule without even realizing it. My first job out of college at age 21 was for a major financial institution, and they offered 401k plans for their new employees without any probationary period. I instantly signed up and allocated 5% of my income automatically be saved for retirement. 12 years later, my 401k balance has significantly surpassed 6 figures, and that is the power of paying yourself first. Now, understand that paying yourself first doesn't necessarily mean contributing to a retirement plan, though that certainly counts. It just means having a portion of your paycheck direct deposited into any type of savings account first. Basically, that portion of your income is always saved the moment you get paid. Now, if you like this principle, I would strongly suggest you read The Richest Man in Babylon by George Clason. This notion of paying yourself first, 10% in fact is what he uses in the book, is one of the strategies followed by the main character in the book who eventually became the richest man in Babylon. Money management rule number 3. Expenses should never exceed income. In episode 14, Mapping Your Path to Millions, I talk about having a personal profit margin, meaning you have more money coming in than going out. And it's so important. Unfortunately, the rule of expenses should never exceed your income was one I learned the hard way. I got so wrapped up in acquiring material things like clothes, shoes, purses, going out to eat, that I ended up spending way beyond my means. And since I didn't have a savings, I was using credit to fund these purchases. I learned that it literally can take minutes to go into debt and years to get out of it. And this was one of my biggest takeaways during my debt-free journey, which I talk about more in episode 15. When your expenses exceed your income, you're putting yourself in a position to use your savings when you shouldn't or incur debt. And both of those situations are a recipe for financial disaster. Now, keep in mind, expenses don't just mean bills, although at minimum, your income should cover all of your bills and living expenses. For the sake of this rule, expenses can also mean your discretionary or unnecessary spending. That's where I got in way over my head. I was spending so much money that I did not have and did not have coming in on things I didn't need. And it literally took me years to get out of debt. And now that I'm older, I realize it wasn't worth it. I still have clothes in my closet with the price tag on it. I was so focused on acquiring things and I didn't appreciate experiences instead. Thankfully, that has changed now, but it taught me a hard lesson. Your expenses and spending should never exceed your income. Money management rule number 4. There's a difference between wants and needs. Now, this rule piggybacks off of the previous one. When you are not able to differentiate your needs versus your wants, you end up spending way more money than you should. And you convince yourself that everything is a need and therefore make it a point to purchase everything. Yes, I'm speaking from experience. I wouldn't say that I was unable to tell the difference between my wants and my needs, but I was not able to control my spending on the wants. I knew I didn't really need something, but I wanted it. And I let that desire, that want, take over and made the purchase. Those purchases led me into debt. Now, listen to episode 6 if you want to hear more details on how I curbed that desire to spend. Because now, thankfully, I only buy the things I need. Now, if there's something that I truly do want to buy, I make sure that it's in budget or I save for it. And depending on the amount of the item, I may purchase it on a credit card with a zero balance to get the reward points, but then I'll instantly pay it off with the cash that I had saved up for the item. So I'm not saying don't indulge in your wants, just be smart about it. Honesty time. Money management is not rocket science. It just feels that way because we tie our emotions, experiences, and sometimes our self-worth to our money. That needs to change, and I'm on a mission to help drive that change. In my new free masterclass, I'm sharing 3 cold, hard facts you need to know to shift your money perspective and finally start seeing results in your situation. I'm going to show you how to level up your finances so you can begin to see forward progress with your goals and have something to show for the money you work so hard for. The masterclass is only here for a short time and it's happening soon. So save your spot now by going to citygirlsavings.com/masterclass. I can't wait to see you there. Money management rule number 5. It's not how much you earn that counts. This was a very important rule for me to learn early on. It wasn't about how much money I made, but what I actually did with it. That bank job that I had previously mentioned right after college came with a very small salary. It would have been tight, but I could have made that salary work with my expenses. However, Since I was not in a place where I could control my spending, I had simply convinced myself that I just didn't make enough. Once I was forced to take control of my spending, remember that eviction I mentioned in episode 1, I was able to see that this small salary that I had could actually get me where I needed to go. It wasn't going to be overnight, but it would get me there. I see the same in my clients, only from the opposite side of the spectrum. A majority of my clients actually make very good money compared to their situation. So in spite of making this very good salary, they still had debt and they still were not able to save. However, once we got to the root of where their money was going and created an effective budget, the transition was incredible. And that goes back to my point. It's not how much you earn that counts, but what you do with it. You could be making a very small salary, but be living debt-free and saving every month. But on the other hand, you could be making a very large salary, but be knee-deep in debt and living paycheck to paycheck. It's not about how much you earn, but what you do with what you earn. Money management rule number 6, invest as early as possible. Now, I would like to say that I was savvy enough at 21 to understand this rule, but I wasn't. I just knew that I couldn't pass up the match that was offered on my bank's 401k plan. Okay? So regardless, the fact that I started investing as early as I did and the way my 401k plan has grown to this day, I would say that this rule is probably one of the most powerful money management rules that anyone can follow. There is absolutely no denying the power of compounding gains. And it essentially means that your money earns money and then earns money on top of the money that was earned. Now, just like the way your credit card balance accrues interest on top of the balance and then additional interest that was previously accrued, the same applies to your investments. The only difference is one situation works in your favor and the other one doesn't. So if you have a credit card that is accruing interest, I would strongly suggest you pay that off before investing. Now, the only exception to this rule would be contributing to a 401k or IRA. You should probably do that as soon as possible, even if you are working to pay off your credit card debt. Now, the reason why I say it's important to pay off your credit card debt before investing is because the average rate of return on your stock type investments is about 8 to 10%. The average credit card interest rate is about 15 to 25%. So if you choose to invest rather than pay off your credit card debt, you would ultimately be losing money. Now, assuming that you don't have any credit card debt, start investing now. And I'm not just talking about your 401k or IRA, though you should be contributing to those. I'm talking about an investment account through a company like Betterment, Public, Robinhood, Charles Schwab, or Fidelity. Now, the good news is that it doesn't have to be much. You can start investing with $10 a month, $20 a month, $50 a month. Over time, it all adds up. The point is just to get started as early as possible and to try not to touch those investments until a long time has passed. And rounding out our list, money management rule number 7, budget to understand your situation. The last money management rule that just totally changed the game for me is budgeting so that I could understand my situation. I was actually pretty good about this rule early on, but I let the fact that I was making more money convince me that I didn't need to budget, only to come back to budgeting later. Having a budget is a total game changer because a budget tells you exactly how much money should be coming in, how much money should be going out, and what's left over. This information allowed me to see what I could reasonably spend on myself, what I could put towards my debt, and what I could save. And knowing that information is so powerful. When you know what you're capable of achieving, your budget helps ensure that you actually achieve it. Tracking your spending is what makes sure you're sticking to your budget. Now, On the flip side, not knowing what your income is capable of doing for you keeps you in the dark. It keeps you from reaching your goals as soon as you possibly can. And it keeps you from tapping into your true potential. And we absolutely cannot have that. We as women must know exactly what we're working with and what we're doing with it. And to be honest with you, that is exactly why I became a finance coach and why I create budget plans for people. The minute I understood the power of a budget and what it did for my situation, I just had to share it. I made it my life's mission to spread the word, and I'm on a mission to teach as many women as possible that budgeting is the key to financial independence. So if you need a budget plan, give me a shout. At the end of the day, I'm sharing these 7 money management rules with you because they made such a difference in my finances and in my life. Without these rules to follow, who knows where I'd be? Well, actually, I know where. I would be deep in debt, surrounded by things I don't need, and complaining about how terrible my life is. I don't want that for you, so start implementing these rules and you will be just fine. Thank you so much for tuning in to City Girl Savings today. I hope you feel empowered and inspired to master your money as you make your way to your dream life. Make sure you subscribe so you're the first to know when a new episode comes out. I truly value your thoughts and feedback, so please leave a review and let me know how this podcast has impacted you. Can't wait to chat soon and make it a great day.